Check, check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go. And let's go. It is Ballsy Uncut for this Friday. It's a game day around here, not only because the Saskatchewan Roughriders are playing and the Argonauts and Tiger Cats in the early game, but the start of the Western Hockey League season too. And we'll be talking a little Regina Pats and Eastern Conference news with Dante Decaria, the voice of the Regina Pats. We will also talk CFL football. The BC Lions are on their bye week, and Giulio Caravatta, former quarterback in the league with the Lions, longtime broadcaster with the team, will join us to pick the games this week and preview the games this week and talk about what's going on, and specifically in BC. Do they have a little bit of a quarterback controversy there between Nathan Rourke and Vernon Adams Jr.? We also like to every couple of weeks hook up with our health and lifestyle expert. That's Tish Duffy, Train with Tish. I did the segment with her regularly when I was on the radio. We're now in the podcasting world, and she joins us. And the beauty of it is we get to see her on video, and she's not bad on the ice. I'm just going to call it like I see it. So Tish will join us, Train with Tish. And we will also get you ready for week number 3 in the NFL. It is the fantasy football guru, Andy McNamara, with all the news and notes you need for the week and coming up. Speaking of the NFL, Baltimore Ravens signed running back Justice Hill to a 2-year extension worth $6 million. Sitting or starting. Jordan Love is questionable. Practice with the Packers in a limited role, but he is on the questionable list for the game against Tennessee. And Justin Herbert got a high ankle sprain in the game against Carolina. They haven't really depended on his arm of the Chargers. They're in for a real slobber knocker of a game against the Steelers. He's questionable with a high ankle sprain. If he can't go, it'll either be former NDSU quarterback Easton Stick, who's been there for a while, or Taylor Heineke, who's bounced around the NFL, former XFL guy who has 29 starts in his NFL career, most recently with Washington. So I'd expect Heineke to line up under center. Russell Wilson will play for the Steelers. That's going to be an old school 1975 showdown, like probably 13-10, 17-14. Before we get to the CFL, how about Shohei Ohtani? 3 homers, 10 ribbies yesterday. He joined the 50-50 club. That club is him. 50 homers, 50 stolen bases in a season. Probably going to go down as the greatest baseball player ever. He isn't even pitching yet. And this is his year to rehab. This is his rehab year. Coming off that elbow problem. 50 homers, 50 stolen bases, and there could be a legal battle over the ball. Apparently an 18-year-old kid had the ball and somebody snatched it away from him. This has happened before back in 2001 when Barry Bonds set the home run record. One guy had it, then he got just absolutely mobbed. The ball popped out of his glove, and another guy picked it up and put it in his pocket. Well, the judge had video evidence and ruled back then at Pac Bell Park that both guys owned the ball, so they had to sell the ball. And Canadian Seth MacFarlane bought it for $450,000, and those two had to split the profits. So if this 18-year-old kid can get video proof that he had the ball first, then there might be something similar to that. But then they got to find out exactly who is the holder of the ball right now. They probably have that. Apparently, the guy who has the ball will not turn it over to Ohtani or Major League Baseball. Now, when it's on the field of play, it is a form of equipment, obviously. So it is in possession of Major League Baseball. They own the rights to that ball. Once it leaves the yard, it's up for grabs. And that's a club of one. 50 homers, 50 stolen bases by one guy, Shohei Ohtani, who, let's be honest, you can Ted Williams, you can Ken Griffey Jr., you can Babe Ruth, the best baseball player of all time. Probably the guy that can hit, who can run, who can play the field positions if he had to, and who can pitch. CFL action tonight. The Argos taking on the Hamilton Tiger Cats. We'll get into our picks a little later on with Giulio Caravatta coming up here. That should be a good one. Argos getting back some reinforcements. They had a big win in BC last week. to kind of get back on the right track. So we'll see if they can take that next step there. This league's been up and down, up and down, up and down, except for Montreal, which has played pretty consistent football. And then the late game, the Saskatchewan Roughriders going up against the Calgary Stampeders. First meeting of the season. Stamps are 4-8-1 coming off a 19-19 tie against Montreal. Riders are 0-6-1 in their last 7, 1-6-1 in their last 8. Start of the season 5-1. It's the return to Calgary of Corey Mace and Mark Mueller. Mueller coached there. Mace coached there and played there. No Roland Milligan. He had the birth of his daughter a couple of days ago. He is not back. No Frankie Hickson. I was surprised to see Frankie get bumped from the roster, to be quite honest with you, in favor of Armstead, who's a great football player, was fourth leading rusher in the CFL. But Hickson's never been able to get on the roster consistently. And when he's on there, they don't use him consistently. So I don't know what that is. Maybe he's just not a long-term back, but I thought maybe that could have been a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. I don't think it's been Hickson's fault. Yes, he dropped the key pass down the sidelines in the Banjo Bowl. That could have been a bit of a difference maker. But I don't think that's a reason to put him on the one game. So you wonder how that plays in the locker room. But this is a desperate football team. They need to win the game. Everybody's talking playoffs. Ballsy, you think we'll make the playoffs? This is the playoffs right here. These are the playoffs. We have to win this game if they're going to make the playoffs. That's it. If they lose, throw dirt on the grave. She is all over but the crying. No Malik Carney, also he's out, so that's going to affect them defensively. Jaden Dalkey draws back in. Dalkey's the guy that's been in the doghouse this year. Took penalties early and has been scratched the last few games. I know he had a great week of practice and he's ready to go, so I'm interested to see what that missile does out there, number 38. It's from left to right on the O-line. Reed, Zur, Furlan, Jones, and Tate, the same line they had at the Banjo Bowl. And they're going to be going up against a pretty good Calgary defensive line, not in terms of sacks, but pressures and activation. Hauser, Coatney, Rose, Vaughters, and then you mix in Hicks, and they got a pretty good linebacking core too. Former Ryder Judge, Micah Awe, Brandon Dozier. And not a bad secondary either. This game's going to come down to this. Can the Riders' O-line hold up so Trevor Harris can complete passes to his receivers? Will those receivers catch balls? Because they've had some untimely drops at times, even in practice where Coach Mace lit them up, obviously, on Tuesday. So it's going to come down to the passing games. Can the Riders throw the ball? Can Armstead give them, that juice on the ground to help them get more time in the pass game? We'll see that. And Jake Mayer was coming on. He had a pretty good game against the Montreal Alouettes, and the Riders secondary is their Achilles heel right now. I talked about that on the last show. No Roland Milligan, who's their best player of the year this year, along with the likes of Micah Johnson, but he's leading in almost every defensive category, breakups, interceptions, special teams tackles, and he's not in the game. So that'll be very interesting for the Rough Riders. That's what it's going to come down to in this game, I believe. So the show is brought to you by Ward Tirecraft, 101 Dudney Avenue in Regina. Go check them out. Tell them Ballsy sent you, and you will get 10% off. Also want to thank our friends over there at AGT Foods. Mirad Al-Khatib, his brother Omar, stepping up here, feeding the world, helping support the community and support this podcast. Really do appreciate it. So a couple of great sponsors. And Paul Waldo over at Royal LePage in Regina, getting the real estate game with the three-time Grey Cup champ, 306-502-5355. He and his brother Peter celebrated their 40th birthdays. They had a flag football game. I was supposed to do commentary with their other brother, BK Waldo, but I got back late from my trip and couldn't quite get there to make the game there at the rugby field. But we'll have Paul on next week, and I owe him lunch for his birthday. The other thing I want to talk about is the fundraiser for Miles Brown. It's got people talking. A lot of people in favor of it. People are saying, he's a pro athlete. That's just disgusting. You're embarrassing. It's a joke you're doing this. I don't give a crap what people say. I really don't. I'm raising money for a good kid who's not a dirty player and was fined excessively for that hit on Strevler, okay? So 2,500 or thereabouts is what the fine was. John Thomas donated $50. He mailed me a bank draft for Miles Brown. Matty Teal she's a young aspiring broadcaster. I know she works at one of the Boston pizzas in town, and she loves her football and knows her football, actually, Rider football. She donated $25. John H, I can't pronounce your last name. I don't want to butcher it. I'll call him John H. He donated $10. Deb, hold on here. I got Deb's name, and I think I can pronounce it. Give me 1 second here. Want to get this correctly. Deb Shakowski out at Echo Lake. She met me in town today and dropped me off $100. So doing the math, we're looking right now, I think, if I did my math correctly, $1,709 for Miles Brown. And people say they like this way to donate. A, because they trust me, and B, you don't have to pay a user fee for GoFundMe for the person donating. So if you'd like to donate, you can direct message me, X, Facebook, YouTube. I'm going to hook up with Miles next week, turn over the cash to him, or in this case, when John sent me that, the bank notice, the bank draft, I guess, because he doesn't do internet banking. But anyway, so that's what you do. You just direct message me at X at Ballsy Uncut, Facebook Ballsy Uncut, or Michael Ball on Facebook, and I will tell you how to donate. We're going to do it till the end of the post-game show tonight. Myself and former provincial winning football coach, coaching a lot of tackling camps in Saskatchewan. His son played for the U of S Huskies. I think both of his sons played for the U of S Huskies. Ryan Hall, and he was a teammate of mine with the Rams. Actually, he left and I took over his number 10 because Brad Hirschmiller was Frugal, our old equipment guy. So he just changed out the H and the B, and it went from Hall to Ball. He will join us for the Our Balls Are Bigger post-game show right after the Riders and the Calgary Stampeders. Okay, coming up, we're going to, right off the get-go, talk to Giulio Caravatta, one of my favorite guys in the CFL to talk to about the Canadian Football League and all things sports as it relates to football. That's coming up next here on Ballsy Uncut. So much to talk about in the CFL. Nobody better to talk to about it than Giulio Caravatta, former BC Lions quarterback, longtime color commentator on their radio network. Giulio, how are you, bro?
I'm good, buddy. It's good to see you, my friend.
Nice to see you. Let's start with the business first. Rogers, you used to work for Sportsnet covering the Grey Cup, know, as a TV guy, and now Sportsnet buys MLSE, well, the Bell portion of MLSE.
Yeah.
And so they're going to continue they're going to do Raptors and Leafs in a 20-year agreement, and then continue to let TSN cover, obviously, FC, Toronto FC and CFL. But I wonder what's going to happen down the road there.
Well, yeah, no, I don't know about you, buddy, but I was a little shocked at that they would give up that, big a property. Like that is, you remember when all that stuff first came down, how they refused to let the other one buy all of it. They had to be 50-50 or else none of it was going to happen. So now all of a sudden it's, you know what, it's hard to get a read on what, where all this is going. But I have to think, given the fact that Rogers, and their, what's the right word? Their commitment to the CFL and the coverage that they've given it. It's going to be interesting to see whether or not they try to sell that portion of the MLSE.
I wonder if it's not more a play to get NFL.
That's always been always been their deal, right?
Yeah.
I just don't. The thing about that whole NFL part, though, Ballsy, and you might be closer than I am to all this stuff, but with them, with all this stuff they're doing in Europe, and now they went to Mexico, and then they went to Brazil, and I just can't see Toronto being that next market. I just can't see it. I think they would rather do it in Europe first than try to do it in Canada.
What's an NFL team going for now? Like $8 billion or $7 billion? So what is
Absolutely.
that? So what's that in Canadian money? About $12 billion? Then you have to build a stadium that the NFL wants you to have. So I don't think it'll ever happen. But if it is going to happen, it's going to happen in Toronto and Vancouver, and I don't think it's going to happen in either city. But it'll be interesting to see, because there's one thing. Listen, we can't we can bang on anybody. They can cut down Giulio and Modes. They can cut down Ballsy. They can cut down Bell Media and TSN for how they cover things. But if not for TSN, this league might be dead. Like that Bell Media, they had the big TV deal. So when we say, well, there's only 15,000 in Calgary or here, we got to estimate 5,000 to 8,000 seats are the equivalent of the big TV deal, right? So,
Yeah.
so that's what we have. So we can't poo-poo TSN, but competition is good. So it'd be nice to see somebody else compete with TSN to make it to up their broadcast a bit.
Yeah, Ballsy. That's if in every league it's the same, right? You look what makes the NFL so successful is that every network has a piece of the pie, and they put and commit to it. So I agree with you. You can't argue with what TSN and what Bell has done for the CFL. They've done an amazing job. But it would be nice to see, somebody else jump in and, even if it's one game a week or whatever, just to, give it that little bit of, their own spin on the games and how they cover it. So, a competition is good. No question.
So we've got Montreal as the team in the CFL, and then everybody else is in a blender. Is that the sign of a bunch?
I'm going to argue with you on that.
Okay.
I don't get me wrong. Montreal's a very good team, but I don't know whether or not they're that much above anybody else.
Well, they're
right
not.
now.
They're not. No, I agree with you. I think everybody's in the same boat. But record-wise, they're there, and everybody else is
yes,
here.
Yes.
So then here's my question: do we have a league that is, has parity with a bunch of good teams, or parity with a bunch of teams?
No, I think there's a lot of good teams. I really do. Watching all the games the way I do, it's just like right now defensively teams are I think they're a hair ahead of most offenses, and really every game that comes down to the wire, I think it speaks to the league, right, and how competitive it is. So I for one, I'm looking forward to this last stretch, Ballsy. This is going to be entertaining as heck going down to the last 4 or 5 weeks, especially for the Lions, who they've got to start making some hay here because it's going to get awfully spicy with some of these teams. Edmonton, the way they're playing. Saskatchewan's been in a lot of close games. I got a funny feeling that a lot of this is going to be answered come the first or second week of October when the Lions come to Saskatchewan. That's going to be a big game.
As it relates to the Riders, I think if the Riders lose in Calgary tonight, Friday night, throw dirt on the grave. She's all over. If they lose, they're in last place, and she's all over. You haven't won in 7 games. You'd be 1-7-1 in your last 9. And do you not agree with this? Like, I don't want to. Anytime I go, listen, I'm going to say this again because sometimes people listen with half an ear. I have picked the Riders for most of the year at the top of my power rankings, and I picked the Riders the last 4 weeks to win. So anytime I say something about the Riders negative, people say, "Oh, sour grapes, he's got an axe to grind." But I'm going to say this right now. Whatever. I'm going to say this right now. If they don't win this game against Calgary, what's changed? And that's a bad sign, Giulio, when you come out of a bye week in a must-win situation and it's the second practice of the week and your coach rips you a new asshole twice and sends you off the field. That does not scream confidence to me.
Yeah. No, I agree. I can't argue with any of that. But you're right. The way the games are and how important each and every game is. They lose, like you say, Friday night, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on that team, and then everybody else, right? Like the scary thing is that right now in the Western Division, right, every single game matters. There is no okay, not right now. Like you're fighting for your playoff life right now, and that's the mentality that you have to have. And as you said, if that was the case of the practice after a bye week that your coach is sending you off the field because he's not happy with your effort, then maybe there's bigger problems. But The one thing that I will say, having watched, Corey Mason's and that defense, they've had a lot of bad luck. But their defense, when they're on, they're as good as anybody in the league. So,
yeah.
Again, I really, this is one of the first years, Ballsy, for me. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. There's nobody in the Western Division that I'm saying, oh, yeah, they're. The one thing I will say is Edmonton scares me. Edmonton is playing with a level of confidence right now, and that's what you need. They believe now in their system. They believe in their coach. They're playing for one another. Trey Ford has got them believing in him. They scare me a little bit. But everybody else is just right there. Like I can't say, oh yeah, Winnipeg's going to run away with it. I can't say the Lions or Saskatchewan or any. Like it's just so up in the air. But I love it. I'm watching every game now live because I want to see what happens.
If Calgary doesn't win, like if Calgary got into the playoffs last year at 6-12 because the Riders couldn't put them away and soiled the sheets.
Yeah.
And it's a similar script this year, just different players, different faces. But if Calgary doesn't get into the playoffs and has another poor year, and it's not been a great year, is that it for Dave Dickinson as head coach? No? Not at all? You don't think they'd move him upstairs and put Killam as the head coach?
No.
No? No. Why is that?
This is why. I mean, I'm a big Dave Dickinson fan.
Me too.
And here's the reality. What's the one thing that you would say for the past 20 years, maybe more, that they've had?
Quarterbacks.
They haven't had it. I'm sorry, Jake. I like Jake. He's a good guy. Everything I know about him, everyone speaks very, very highly of him, but he struggles. He's not that kind of dynamic quarterback that we're used to seeing line up for the Calgary Stampeders. They need a quarterback.
But let me stop you. This is where I was going with this. We talked the NFL at the start here, okay? They've expanded the practice rosters now, and the money's big there, and the quarterbacks we used to get don't come to Canada anymore.
You're right.
They stay there. I submit to you that that's why we're kind of in a middling league because we do not have star power at quarterback. No disrespect to Nathan Rourke. He's having a bit of an off year coming back here, but we don't have the star quarterbacks 4 or 5 deep like we used to.
No, I totally agree. That's the problem is that all the quarterbacks that are mobile and that were undersized used to come here because they weren't getting any kind of a look in the NFL. Now that's all they want.
That's
they
right.
They want that mobile quarterback that can move around and make plays with his feet. So those guys are getting a lot of leeway, a lot of look, but that's not to say though in Calgary's case, Dave's one of the best at developing quarterbacks, and I really believe it's what's going to be interesting in the offseason is where all the Vernon Adams stuff goes. And that's going to be very interesting for me.
Would you, if you were Trey Ford, would you trust the Elkamos, as I like to call them? Would you trust the Edmonton Elkamos, or would you say, no, you guys have jerked me around enough. I'm moving on. Because I'd move on. Because I'd move on.
You know what speaks louder than anything?
Money.
Yeah.
Money.
And if they make a financial commitment to him, then all of it will be gone. That's the bottom line in the business. That's the bottom line. If you believe in Trey Ford, if you truly believe in his organization, you believe in him, you're going to pay him. And you're going to say, you're our guy. You're our marquee guy. We're paying you the marquee money. We're building the franchise around you.
You're a Canadian quarterback. You played in the league. Is he the guy? Does he have potential to be the guy? Would you give him the money? Would you give him the money?
I would. And here's the thing. This is the one thing about that this whole part. If Trey Ford was from Eastern Washington, would you be saying that?
No.
No, you wouldn't. It drives me. That's the part that drives me crazy. Like, what more does the guy got to do?
Me too. Yeah,
I know.
Me too.
It's just crazy. Here's the one thing at Ballsy, what I'll say, and having been there, and when we played them about a month ago in Edmonton, when he steps onto the field, there is a level of excitement that he brings, and it's like Nathan here in BC. People they start creeping to the edge of their seat. He brings and that to me is something that, you can't, once you have it, you better hold on to it. So I think that given the way Trey has handled himself and the way that they've come back, they've got a great 1-2 punch too, like both those guys. And that's not I'm not disrespecting McLeod Bethel Thompson because I like him. I think he's done a great job there. But Trey's got that. He's got that magnetism to him. His personality is fantastic. He gets it. He's great with the media, all that stuff. Let him run. Give him the keys and let him go.
Hey, you know me. This guy's Nathan Rourke was my very first guest on this show when I launched it. I love the kid. I've always been a supporter of his, but I'm happy he hasn't come back and just where he left off, because it
speaks to the league.
It gets rid of the notion that this is a bush league, that you can go for a vacation to the NFL. I'm joking, but you can go to do your NFL vacation, your camp tour, come back here and just come back and automatically be the best player in the league. But let me ask you, does what he did, and I would not stop him from doing that, good on the kid, but did it dent his progress here? Like, he doesn't look the same.
Well, no, I know that he does. Everyone says that he doesn't look the same, but here's the thing. Think about where think about the last month for him, right? Where he was, how he came back, the ups and downs of the whole mental side of the game.
Yeah.
And again, I think it speaks to your point. You make an excellent point that it just speaks to the league. Like, it's a tough league. And so for him to come in here and thinking that he's going to tear it, I personally, that was my problem. My expectations were way too unrealistic. Where he was coming from, the travel, all the things, being thrown into a new locker room, being thrown he understood the basis of what his offense was, but there was some new wrinkles, getting used to new players, the receivers, all that, and then throw in the whole Vernon Adams dynamic. There's a lot of stuff going on there, right? So I think as a human, I think to myself, I'm going to give him a lot of leeway as far as where this is and where he is as far as, getting used to the league again, it's not that easy.
Yeah.
And
how does that play in the locker room? So Giulio Caravatta is slinging the rock around the yard and his receivers are loving him and he's on an MOP pace. And then all of a sudden Damon Allen comes back and Giulio Caravatta has to sit on the sidelines. Now, granted, Giulio Caravatta, a.k.a. Vernon Adams, was hurt, so there was a bit of that. But how does that play in the locker room now? Is there any type of friction, do you think?
Well, no. That's the one thing that I can honestly tell you, and being around these guys is, like I am, you couldn't have asked for two better pros the way that they have handled this. Vernon Adams has been unbelievable at the way that he has handled this situation, because I've seen it. You've seen it, where it can really cause a big, big problem. Both these guys, it's team first. Do they want to play? No question. But they're going to put the team first. So, to your point, yeah, of course. The way this thing went down, it was so quick, Ballsy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we I don't know how many times we talked, and you'd say, well, what do you think about Nathan? You think, and I would say to you, and we would both say, I go, well, if he's going to come back to the CFL, it's going to be towards the end of September. He's going to wait, see what the final cuts are, if there's any injuries, if there's any this, any that, and boom, overnight it happened. So for all of us, it was tough to wrap our heads around it, because it was so quick. And then the same for in the locker room. I think a lot of guys, it happened so quickly that it was tough for some guys to wrestle around with it. But now that it's kind of been settled, it's been about a month. I know that I heard today that them say that they're going to have a personnel meeting, I think on Thursday, to and figure out all the implications and how they're going to move forward. So that's going to be very good, because once you have a plan, then everybody knows what the plan is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Do you get the sense that he's done with the NFL? Like, he's content to be back here, I guess is the better way to put it. Maybe not done with the NFL, but he's content here.
You know what? That's something I haven't asked him, Ballsy. I honestly, I don't want to, if you're asking me to speculate, if Nathan were to tear it up for 2 years, and I think now that he has gone through the NFL and the politics of the NFL, and again, as we spoke about earlier, he realizes now that any kind of an opportunity that he's going to get it, and they're going to back it with money. So if he's a starter here and he has 2 great years, and the NFL is going to come to him and say, hey, we're going to give you a 3-year, $9 million contract to be our backup with a chance to maybe start, that's what it's going to take.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Okay, so let's pick some games here this week. We got Toronto and Hamilton, the first game. Who do you got, Toronto or Hamilton? You Toronto? Yeah, me too. I got Toronto as well.
Again, Chad Kelly's going to only get better and better with the more time that he looked great against the Lions. Their defense is very good. If he starts to heat up, they're going to be a tough out for somebody down the road.
Riders and the Calgary Stampeders tonight, the late game.
Wow.
I got the Stamps by 4.
Do you?
Yeah. I don't think people will say, and even some of the media here, which by the way has been surprisingly soft on the Riders. I don't even know where I'm living anymore. And some of it's the Corey Mace honeymoon, and I get it. He shouldn't be on the hot seat, okay? But it's like, I'd rather see them get ripped and have a bad day on Tuesday than Friday. But if it was Craig Dickinson's team, they would say, well, that's a bad sign. He's lost the team. Okay.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm saying? It's all perception versus.
Hey, when you've been around long enough, you've heard it all, buddy.
I've heard it all. So Roland Milligan's, the secondary is a weak spot as it is. And Roland Milligan is not playing because his significant other had a baby. And, Malik Carney's not playing. They got Armstead, the new running back, in there. I just don't think and Calgary.
Is that game's in Calgary, right?
Yes.
Then I'll go Calgary, the home team.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden the Riders are in last place. Can you imagine? 5-1 in last place.
So that 5-1, that would mean Calgary. They would be tied with 5 wins,
and behind them because they'd have identical 5-8-1 records.
Yeah, and then Edmonton would.
Edmonton's home to Winnipeg, winners of 5 of their last 6. I got Edmonton to beat Winnipeg. Pretty good, too.
Winnipeg?
In Edmonton.
I don't know. I think I might take Winnipeg on the road there.
Okay. I got Edmonton by 8. Edmonton.
By 8?
Oh, yeah. Edmonton's a really good football team. They are. And before we get to the last game, which would be Montreal. Well, let's do Montreal, Ottawa. Who do you got there?
Montreal.
Yeah, me too, because Ottawa's defense is stumbling. Pickett's out for the year.
Yeah, Pickett's out. Yeah, that's a big loss for them.
Huge.
And that on special teams too, because he was a demon on special teams.
And look, Montreal just continued. I know Mac got hurt, but they added Mac back, and then they got that Uguak back again.
Yeah, they're when you play great defense like they do, they don't need to do much on offense to make it close.
I don't think Chris Jones is a good head coach, okay? I think he won a Grey Cup with Mike Riley. But I do think he's a good defensive coordinator, which he's showing in Hamilton since he took over. Mm-hmm. And to finish my thought on Edmonton, Chris Jones built a good roster there. No disrespect to our mutual friend G. Roy Simon, who I think has a future as a not just an interim, but a long-term GM in this league. But they really haven't added anybody since Chris Jones left. They got basically the same team. Yeah, AC Leonard here and one piece there. But that was Chris Jones's team. And he built a great roster in Edmonton. And
here's the thing, too. I agree. I'm a Chris Jones fan. I like him. I mean, I like his style. He's got a little bit of bravado, and not a little bit. He's got a lot, but he usually backs it up. I just think that the stability one thing I will say about Edmonton is that you did see them have a lot of movement with players in and out, and he was always constantly trying to find a better lineup. And I think one of the things that G-Roy and Jarius have done is they've really settled that down. And at some point, Ballsy, you've got to believe in your ability to assess talent. And if the guy doesn't play well in one game, you don't just put him on the bench or bring another guy in and substitute him out. You've got to let a guy develop. And I think that's one of the things that they've done, and now they're reaping is that they've made they made some mistakes early in there, but now their group is growing as a group and getting a chance to kind of make amends on mistakes and again just develop into this league. And I think that's one of the things that G-Roy's done is really brought a lot of stability there.
At the start of the year, Dunnigan was on this show and he said Edmonton would win the Grey Cup. And I laughed at him. Like I outwardly, and this was before the season started. And then they went 0-5, 0-7, and I kept bugging him. And now all of a sudden, I'll tell you what, if the Edmonton.
Did they run the table?
I don't know if they'll run the table, but I think they could finish 500. Like, think about that. They started 0-7. And if you were to list the power rankings right now, take the records. I'd go Winnipeg 1, probably, Edmonton 2, and Montreal 3, just based on how they've been playing in the last 6-7 weeks.
They lost 3 games on walk-off field goals.
And 4 by field goals. You're right.
Yes.
4 by field goals, 3 on walk-offs.
Yes. I know. Wow. What could have been? Like, they could be way out in front right now. And Chris Jones would still be there.
And that's the thing. I've just been a fan and a media guy. You've been a fan, a media guy, and you've played. So you're one up on me. I'm trying to rack my brain. When's the last time it's been this much of a blender? I can't remember. Like, you always have one or two stud teams.
Yeah.
Like, the
right. I can't remember it. Honestly, like you're saying, like, there's not much difference between last and third. So that's what I'm saying. Like, anybody that gets on a roll here and wins 2 or 3 games or 4 games in a row at the end could get themselves in, right?
Well, Hamilton's not even out of the playoffs for a crossover.
I know. I know, it's crazy.
Isn't it? Hey, man, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. By the way, how was the hockey?
Oh, it was excellent.
Yeah?
I love it.
Yeah, you love it.
I'm a big fat guy running around on the ice, but I just love it.
Was that your favorite sport growing up, or soccer, or what was it?
No, baseball.
Baseball was. Who's your baseball team?
I worked with the Blue Jays.
Oh, you did.
I was on the Toronto Blue Jays ground crew when I was in high school.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So
from 1982 to 1985.
So you were there for their first playoff run when they were in the playoffs there. CNE.
Won the American League East Championship was my last year.
Lost to the Royals, right?
Ballsy, I'll give you a little bit of trivia. You'll enjoy this.
Mm-hmm.
I was the second guy to handle the dead seagull that Dave Winfield killed in right field.
Really? You were the second guy to handle it.
So what ended up happening was Jason, I forget what Jason's last name was, but he was the ball boy in right field. He was playing catch with Winfield, and Winfield killed the seagull. Jason Pinchuk, I think. He went out with a Gatorade towel, picked it up, and he walked down towards me, who I was doing in between innings when they were warming up. I used to do security in front of the visiting team dugout. So Pinchuk came down, gave me the towel with the bird in it, and I went into our little office and put the bird in the garbage. I didn't know what else to do with it. It was dead. But the funniest part about that story is this. So afterwards, my job was to fix home plate in the mound. I used to mix the clay, pound it in, get the holes all fixed. And so Dave Winfield is doing an interview on the radio in the dugout. And Billy Martin came out looking for Winfield, and he yells at a couple of us that are around the mound. He yells, "Hey, where the F is Winfield?" And I'm looking at him, and all I did is I pointed because he was in the corner. He couldn't see him. So he walks over to Winfield, and he just says, "Hey," he goes, "the cops are here to arrest you for killing that goddamn bird. Get your ass in the clubhouse." And we were all like, "Oh my God, the cops are here. They're going to arrest him." Wow. So anyways, yeah. So I was there for...
Did he purposely throw it at...
No, I don't think so.
No.
Back then, Ballsy, if you had ever been to Exhibition Stadium, right around the 7th, 8th inning, all the seagulls would start flying in off the water, and they were everywhere. So he was warming up, and they were flying around, and he ended up hitting one and killing one.
Maybe it's a fly ball, or is it a seagull? Right? That was the song. The Jays. So my Padres are going to win the World Series this year. You watch.
Yeah, I love it. This is when I start to watch.
Me too.
I can't. It's too much during the regular season, but I'm a huge. I'll watch every playoff baseball game because I love it.
So one more. Well, this is a great other story here. So you're a grounds crew guy. So when you watch the games, are you looking at the field, like how they cut the grass, like Wrigley Field and stuff?
Oh no. Well, back then when because we had the turf.
Yeah. No, but I
So,
mean,
but
do you appreciate when you're
oh
watching the
no,
games
no, yeah,
now?
no. Nowadays, oh my God, yeah, the work that goes into the cutting the grass and the lines and how they make the field look, it looks amazing. But just to give you an idea,
Yeah.
so my job was home plate.
Yeah.
So I used to sit in the dugout. There was a partition there that used to separate, like a little wooden partition that separated because there was a camera
Yeah.
right there that used to shoot home plate.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to sit right beside that in a little stool. So I used to sit and I used to watch 81 baseball games at home from about 30 feet away from home plate.
So you'd watch.
So, and then
Was that?
listening to all the great
Yeah.
characters and the guys used to sit beside you, like,
Yeah.
they would come and put a stool beside you and they'd watch the game from where I was watching it. And they would, you'd hear guys tell stories, and it was the best.
Who was your
I
favorite?
can't tell you how
Who's your favorite ball player back then? Watching.
Jesse Barfield.
Yeah. What'd you like about him?
Well, Jesse was just not only was he a great baseball player, but he was a fantastic human. He was just so good to us, always really nice, talking to us, asking us questions about our own life and how, if we played sports. And but those guys, 90% of them were really, really good guys. That they were, it was such a great thing for me because I was so into sports, and to see those guys at that level. Like my first game, the New York Yankees were in town, and I'll never forget the first guy out of the dugout that I saw was Dave Winfield. And Dave Winfield was like, I just looked at him and thought, oh my God, like this guy's not real. Like he's 6'8". I can remember he had one of those steel bats,
Yeah.
to warm up.
Yeah.
And he was twirling that thing, and you could see the ripples in his arm. And I'm thinking, my God. And then to watch him take batting practice, he was hitting balls that were going up and out of Exhibition Stadium. Like it was just unbelievable. So to be that close to those athletes, it was magnificent.
What a great story. Giulio, thanks for this, man. I always love talking to you. Take care, bro.
Cheers, man. Take care.
All right, my old buddy Dante Decaria joining me here on the show. First time ever on the show, the Italian Stallion. How you doing, bro?
I'm looking forward to coming on with you, Ballsy. Love the show. Have tuned in a couple of times. Great work that you're doing, and it's always nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you too, man. Nice to do it in a video kind of way because you look good. You know what? I'm not quite past my best before date, but you're a lot fresher than me. Okay, bro, let's talk about this season. What are your realistic expectations for the Regina Pats? And maybe they won't reach those expectations early on because, like a lot of teams, guys aren't back from NHL camps and such.
Yeah, Ballsy, it's kind of a tough question to answer, and I don't want to put lipstick on a pig or anything like that, so I want to be as honest as possible because the one thing that I've learned working here in Regina and in the province of Saskatchewan is that the fans that follow their junior clubs, whether it be the Moose Jaw Warriors, the Pats, the Broncos, the Raiders, or the Blades, they know their hockey, right? They know a good player and a bad player. They know a good team and a poor team. And for the most part, the fans are very educated. So to me, my realistic expectations for this Pats team is that they're a playoff team this year. And one of the reasons why I say that, because a lot of people might disagree with me. And the reason why is because the Pats finished with just 22 wins last year, 11th in the Eastern Conference standings and 20th in the Western Hockey League. But in saying that, some younger players have taken another step. They're a little bit older. I do like the depth they have up front with their forwards. And also, Saskatoon is retooling. You got to think that they're going to move whatever assets they have to try to retool and get some draft picks in return after they essentially unloaded everything and went for it. Same with the Swift Current Broncos. They're kind of in between. They have some young players, but they're also maybe in no man's land as well because they don't have a team that could compete for a championship, and they gave up a ton of assets to get a guy like Connor Geekie last year, for example. And then you look at the Moose Jaw Warriors. They gave up a ton to win it. It worked. Awesome. They went to the Memorial Cup, and I'm sure they're going to be back and ready and hungry in the next couple of years. But you got to think that they're going to regress this year, and they're probably maybe going to move off of a guy like Braden Yager. So in saying that, I listed 3 teams that might not make the playoffs this year. I think Swift Current gets in. I don't know about Moose Jaw. I don't know about Saskatoon. So that leaves Edmonton, who didn't make it last year, Calgary, who didn't make it, and Regina. And I think all 3 of those teams that I just listed off are much better this year and will have an opportunity to make the playoffs. I think the Pats make the playoffs this year. Realistically, I think they're a 7th or 8th place team, at best a 6th place club. I think they can hit anywhere between 30 to 34 wins this year, so that's my expectation of them.
Okay, and I'm buying what you're selling. Strength of this team. What would the strength of this team be?
It's the forwards. They have so much depth up front. This weekend, the Pats currently have 27 players on their roster. This weekend, they're without Cameron Kuzma, who's out 4 to 5 or 6 weeks with an upper body injury. They're without Tanner Howe, and they're without Jackson Vaughn. They're without Corbin Vaughn as well. But still, they have so much depth offensively that they can beat teams in many different ways. They've got a lot of different ingredients up front. They've got some guys with size that play physical, like an Anthony Wilson or a Logan Peskett, who are just 18, 19 years old. You have a guy like Zach Moore, who I believe might be a 25, 30 goal scorer in this league. Mm-hmm. And then you have some players that are coming back that are finally, I think, willing to break out. Willing's maybe the wrong word, but ready to break out. A Sam Aremba is an example, 22 goals last year. Ty Spencer, 23 goals last year. Do they hit 30 to 35, maybe even 40, right? That's going to be in their hands. And then there's Tanner Howe. You add him into the mix as well. So in terms of their forwards, I like the forwards that they have. It's going to be a lot of tough decisions for Brad Haroff this season because they have a couple of 16 and 17-year-old players who are rookies that are really pushing the veterans so far. It's nice to have that internal competition. Zach Lansard looks like he'll be the real deal in a couple of years. Cameron Kuzma, when he gets healthy, another 16-year-old, right? Cohen Clausen added to the mix. Same with Christian Lassell. And then don't forget about Braden Smith and Dane Deschamps on the back end. I like the youth movement. Hopefully Cole Temple can take a step this year. Same in Corbin Allman. I like the forwards up front, Ballsy.
Okay, buddy. So they say goaltending's 80% of the game unless you don't have it. Then it's like 100. Mm-hmm. What's the net minding looking like this year for the Pats?
Well, they reassigned Madden Malaka to Junior A this week. He'll be playing for Melfort in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. And so the Pats are rolling with the same tandem that they had last year. And that's a combination of Ewan Huey and Kelton Pine. Both of those two netminders last year played exactly 38 games apiece. So the question is, who's going to grab the starting spot? Because, Ballsy, you've been around longer than I have, and I've watched junior hockey since I'm a kid. You often don't have two 19-year-old goaltenders, especially when you're not a team that's going for it, right? You're not a Medicine Hat. You're not, say, a Prince Albert right now, or maybe a Prince George out west, or a Portland that is still looking to compete for a championship this year. The Pats are going to be competitive. They want to win. Goaltending is going to be important. But I think it's really going to come down to who wins that starting job because it's so tough to have two 19-year-old goaltenders. Will it be Kelton Pine? Will it be Ewan Huey? Essentially, the job is theirs. It's up to them, right? It's up to them. As far as I'm concerned, if you're a 19-year-old goaltender in the Western Hockey League, you cannot split the load like they did as two 18-year-olds last year. Someone has to get hot. Someone has to grab the job and run with it. Will it be Kelton Pine? That remains to be seen. I thought he was he was better out of the two in training camp. He was better out of the two in the preseason. Huey has the potential. Pine has the potential. Both are creating a lot of internal competition. But again, it's essentially their job and their opportunity. The question is, which one of them will be the starting goaltender?
Is it a little unique to have a 19-year-old import goalie when you're not going for it?
It is, but Ewan Huey has the potential. He has the athleticism. He has the hockey genes. His dad was a smaller-sized goaltender that made it and played in the NHL and carved out a very successful career in which he was the starting goaltender for the Montreal Canadiens for several years. He won a Stanley Cup as a backup goaltender in Chicago in 2010. So he knows what it takes. Ewan Huey is young. He's raw. He has the skill set. And both of those goaltenders are going to be mentored closely by Max Paddock, who's actually traveling with the team on the road now. He's essentially a full-time goaltending coach. Of course, the nephew of longtime great head coach and GM John Paddock. So Max is there full-time. He's doing a lot of one-on-one stuff with both goaltenders. So it's nice to have the help from Max. Yes, maybe a little bit unorthodox that you have a 19-year-old goaltender that isn't the starting goaltender. The Pats do have some younger goaltenders in the system. I think Drake Mooney is just 15 years old. He's the real deal. Cruz Chase, potentially in the next couple of years, he's 17. Not sure what happens with Madden Balaka now that he's playing Junior A, and same with Kaiserowski. So there's a lot of goaltenders in the prospect pool. Just a question on what direction Alan Miller decides to go with.
So for those that are, kind of brain dead as it comes to hockey, because it's been a football, baseball type of deal. I'm very much into baseball right now because of my Padres. So I'm just warming back up to hockey and I'll be calling a few games on Access. Who are the kingpins in the East? Medicine Hat, and you mentioned the Raiders. How are the Raiders looking this year, do you think?
I think Medicine Hat might not lose less than 10 games this year.
Wow.
They're the real deal.
Yeah.
The acquisitions that they made this offseason just separates them from the rest of the other teams in the Eastern Conference standings. You look at Medicine Hat with Gavin McKenna now going to be 17. By the way, he's a late birthday, so he'll be with the Tigers next year before he possibly gets drafted first overall. He's absolutely unbelievable. Then they added 20-year-old from Swift Current and Matthew Ward, and they pick up Ryder Ritchie from the Prince Albert Raiders. They got better this offseason, and they're still young. They're still young. Matthew Ward is a 20, yes, but Ryder Ritchie's only 18. They'll have him next year as well to go for it with Gavin McKenna as an 18-year-old.
Wow.
That Medicine Hat team is scary this year and next. And they still have all their draft picks, and they still have tons of young kids, high picks coming through. Willie Desjardins has done an exceptional job turning that program around since he's come back from the NHL. Of course, bench boss with LA, of course, Vancouver before that. So give kudos to, of course, Willie Desjardins. And that puts Curtis Hunt and the Prince Albert Raiders in a little bit of a different position. I probably think that they're the third or second best team in the Eastern Conference standings. Not too sure what Red Deer has up their sleeve with Dave Struch now as their bench boss. But I do believe the Prince Albert Raiders are going to be very strong this year. They do regress, in my opinion, with acquiring a Thomas Mercick for Ryder Ritchie. Ritchie, I think, is a much better player than Mercick, but Mercick is very good as well. They lose Goldschmidt, but they get a high-octane offensive defenseman back in Lucas Dragicevic. And then I was just doing some prep on their roster as well. They've got some exciting young players coming up. Dave Sturkach has made their full-time roster, had an opportunity to chat with Dale at the rink today. It's going to be interesting, him being at the game tomorrow night, because it's going to be watching his son play with the Raiders, making the opening night roster for the first time at 17. And then, of course, him scouting and wanting the Regina Pats to win. And I think in a perfect world, Dace scores for Prince Albert and the Pats still win the hockey game. But in all jokes aside, Riley Boychuk, second overall pick 2 years ago by Prince Albert. He's just 16 years old, an exciting player for their future. Don't forget about Daxton Rudolph as well, first overall pick. And he's going to begin the season with the Prince Albert Raiders. Ty Meunier, seventh overall pick a couple of years ago by Curtis Hunt and Prince Albert. And then they have this guy named Jonah Severson, who's 16 years old. He plays for the Regina Pats Canadians. He's a fourth-round pick, lit it up last year at U18 AAA. He's made their opening night roster. They've got 4 or 5 16-year-olds on their team. So that puts them in a position where, okay, they look at Medicine Hat. They know they're good. They want to compete. But are they all going to put their chips in the middle right now? Probably not. Prince Albert's going to be a very steady and strong team this year, next year, and the year after with the amount of young players they have right now.
So, Dante, it doesn't matter the sport. It's always fun to have the home opener. You got the Raiders in PA on Friday and the Brandon Wheat Kings down the highway coming to Regina on Saturday for the home opener. Let's talk about the pomp and pageantry that is the home opener for 2024-25.
Yeah, really exciting stuff, Ballsy. It's the first of 13 Saturday games this year that the Regina Pats will be playing at 6 o'clock. So brand new start times on weekends. The Pats playing Saturday games at 6 p.m. I love it. I think it's great. People can come out earlier. They can leave earlier. Of course, all Sunday games, I believe 4 Sunday games this year, played at 2 p.m. Also great, family friendly. Kudos to Gord Pritchard and the Pats management staff putting this together. I think it's an amazing, amazing thing that we're doing. I love it. I get to be home a little bit earlier. Ballsy, you've been in my shoes before. You know what it's like. But I think for the fans, it's awesome. We actually experienced it for the first time last week in a preseason game last Saturday against Brandon, and the game ended at 8:15. I think it's awesome. It's wonderful. So yes, a new start time on Saturday. Pre-game tailgate party will begin at 3 p.m. We're going to have a pregame barbecue beginning here on the Real at the ITC Center, so just outside of the Brandt Center. And on top of that, there will be some fun interactive games pregame. K9 and players will be there as well. Some scratch players will be signing autographs as well as postgame autographs as well, with Autograph Alley returning. And on top of that, there's just going to be some giveaways as well, some food and beverage, and some activations going on. So for more details, head to reginapats.com to learn more about the pregame tailgate party, which begins at 3 p.m. on Saturday. And then, of course, our favorite time, doors open at 5, puck drop at 6. And we've got the pregame show beginning at 6:30. So player introductions and our new intro video. And we've got an exciting game day planned for you on Saturday. So Ballsy, I think the home opener is going to be a ton of fun. Really looking forward to Saturday.
And you can catch Dante's call on 620 CKRM as he's the voice of the Pats. How many years now? Three, four? What is it?
This is my 4th year. I've hit 200 games, and Friday will be game number 201 for myself. And also an early shout out to Brad Haroff, who will be coaching his 100th career game as head coach of the Regina Pats on Saturday, becoming the 16th coach in Pats history to reach 100 games as head coach.
That's awesome, man. So you 4 years, so what are you, 25 now?
26, actually.
26. Holy cow. I remember when we were talking about your 24th birthday. So my last question to you is this. How cool is it that you get to, like, you've really developed your style? I like your style now. When somebody comes new to market, like, okay, do I like them? And I've really warmed up to your style. I've told you that. You do a great job. But is it cool to develop with the team? I know you're a little older than the guys, but you're still in the same age bracket, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm a little bit more mature than some of these guys. I've really gravitated towards players like Braxton Whitehead and Tanner Howe and Ty Spencer and guys that have been here since they were 16, 17 years old, since my first year. This will pretty much be my last year that I'll be with the same young guys that I started with, where it was our first year with the Pats, and now it's essentially maybe their last year with the Regina Pats. You think Tanner Howe will turn pro next year. Braxton Whitehead and Ty Spencer have been there with me since I started with the job, and this is essentially their last year. They're both 20-year-olds. So I'm really going to soak in this season because once they're gone, essentially the same players that I started my Pats career with are gone, and that's always a little sad. But you're right. I've built some really strong relationships with a lot of people over the last couple of years here, in particular Connor Bedard, who I consider a close friend and somebody that I truly trust a lot and has been a big supporter of myself, both on the air and off the air as well. You can see behind me, I've got some neat photographs here in my office just to remind me of a lot of the people that I've been able to meet and interact with over the years through baseball, through hockey, and people that have helped me a ton. I believe just over my shoulder on this side, I've got a nice picture with the Bedard family, Melanie, Tom, Maddie, and Connor. Exceptional people, unbelievable people. Just amazing. So blessed to be able to know them and call them mentors and friends. So it's been a lot of fun, Ballsy, since I've come here to Regina. I think God's plan was to have me here in the Queen City, and everybody has a path, and my path was to come here and meet the people that I have, like Ken Schneider and Brad Haroff and Alan Miller and John Paddock, who has been a huge supporter of me, somebody that I speak to weekly and go to advice for. As far as my call goes, coming into this situation, it obviously wasn't easy, knowing the mark that Phil Andrews left on in this community, and he's an exceptional person and an amazing broadcaster, and I have so much respect for him. But I just had to be Dante. I had to be myself and trust what my mentors have taught me. Behind me as well, my greatest mentor, Jerry Howarth, I have a picture of him. He's somebody who's still a huge supporter of me and taught me the ropes. I just wanted to keep doing what those amazing MLB and NHL broadcasters taught me when I was younger, and continue to try to pass it down to other broadcasters around the sport and try to be a mentor for other people, just like mentors were to me. So a lot of it comes because of them and my willingness to learn, adapt, and try to improve every single game. And I look at broadcast like a player would, different things you want to work on when it comes to practice and stuff like that. So I try to have the same mentality, and I hang a Kobe Bryant jersey in my room for a reason, because he's my favorite athlete and somebody who has a tremendous work ethic and somebody who just is so dedicated and persistent and doesn't let anybody put him down or doubt him. So I want to keep that mentality, because as Ballsy, not everyone's going to like you. People are going to doubt you. I try to just use that as motivation and to fuel myself to eventually reach my goals and try to be an NHL broadcaster, which is my dream. And I'll keep working at that until hopefully I get there one day.
Amen, brother. Appreciate it. Next time we have you on, you're a big reptile guy. We'll have to do like a story hour, and you have a couple reptiles now on the screen. That's what I'll have to do next time.
Hopefully I'm able to do that, Ballsy. We're going to have a reptile day at the rink this year in mid-October. I also did get 2 kittens as well, 2 Siamese kittens. So really excited to have those 2 guys be Pats fans this year.
Awesome, man. Thanks for your time. Best of luck this weekend, okay?
All right. Thanks, Ballsy. Appreciate it.
Well, we check in with my friend Tish. This is Train with Tish. We do it every couple of weeks. Hey, I just got back from Amsterdam. Have you ever been to Amsterdam?
I have not, but I definitely have that on my list of places I'd love to travel to. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, you should check it out, and you would love it. And I'm not talking the red light district. I'm not going there. What I'm talking about is it's a city of about 900,000, and on average, each person has 3 bikes. So it's a very walking, biking city. So I know you like to do that stuff, and it's amazing. I was there. I didn't see one accident while I was there, and I'm prone to accidents. And I was on a bike and didn't hit anybody. It's a really outdoorsy city, so I recommend it for you.
Awesome.
So let's start here. As I talk to you today, I'm just trying to book a massage because I think I tweaked something in my back or like my neck, and it's my fault because if I have 45 minutes to work out, I'm going to spend most of it working out. I'm not going to stretch. Stretching's for those people. I don't need to stretch. The older I get, I find out that's stupid, and actually it's dumb for everybody. Everybody should stretch. I think you'd agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have even asked me or spoke about this with me 2 years ago, I probably would have had the exact same mindset as you do. But I know that most of your listeners are men, but for me, as soon as I reached perimenopause, hormones started changing, and for men, these sorts of things change too. Mm-hmm. It affects the way you move your body, and if you're not mobile, the strength training sessions that you're doing really won't actually be benefiting you as well, because you're not training your body through the proper ranges of motion that are required. So mobility is something that I have completely changed in my programming. If my clients aren't spending 10 minutes daily, I tell them that their strength benefits or their strength workouts are not going to be benefiting them the way they need to. It is just like a non-starter for me. If you're not willing to put that effort in now at this age, 45 on, then you're probably not going to be, I actually can tell you, you're not going to be getting the same benefits from the efforts you're spending in the gym. So you've got to start doing it.
Okay, so as we're talking here then, is there, I want to talk about people starting up working out, but starting up stretching. If you want to get, like me, I'm listening to you, I've worked out for my whole life, and I know how to stretch, but are there a basic set of stretches somebody should do every time?
That's a really good question. I mean, typically what you're feeling in your body is not actually the area that's the most problematic. So if you're feeling your back, it probably is more to do with even calf tightness, hip tightness. So focusing on, believe it or not, specific strengthening and stretching of the calf muscles, which is something that I do almost daily now, and it's taken away, believe it or not, my knee pain. Mm-hmm. And then hip stretches, right? So, I forget what it's called, but you've got to make sure that you're limber and moving those hips daily. So, the figure eights where you're standing and moving your hips in and out. More dynamic types of movements, not so much. I mean, it's great to hold stretches and count for about 10 to 20 seconds, or when you feel the relief of the stretch, then typically that's when you hold off. But I actually prefer my clients to move dynamically. So move the body through certain ranges of motion, opening up the hips, opening up the hip flexors. I actually have my level 1 Aldoa certification, and these are specific postures that help create space within the vertebrae. And if you create space in the vertebrae, so these are, 1 minute hold postures, it will speak to other parts of the body. It's absolutely fascinating. And again, because of the new realm of scope that I'm practicing in terms of helping people with mobility issues, Aldoa postures, dynamic movements, proper warm-ups, proper cool-downs. Downward dog is a really good one, right? Airplane is a really good one. You're going to feel and hear your body creaking and crackling. This is a good thing. Don't be afraid of the body speaking to you, I always say. Especially women, they're like, I can hear my knee, I can hear my shoulder. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes that's your body opening up and saying, thank you.
Yeah. It's never too late to start working out. So what's a couple of suggestions for somebody, whether they're 30, 40, 50 or whatever, to start working out?
I agree. I mean, I trained a 69-year-old starting. I mean, she had done some previous strength training in her 40s, but she needed a hip replacement at 69. And at 69, they wouldn't do the surgery because she wasn't strong enough. Well, after 6 months of training the 69-year-old, she no longer actually ended up needing that hip replacement. And I actually continued to train this woman until she was 80. She passed away of cancer, but she didn't even have an Advil or a Tylenol in her cabinet. She didn't need any painkillers because of what she started doing at 69. So I tell that story to everyone because I think it really does give hope for people who haven't started and really feel like maybe it's too big of a climb to get there. It is absolutely never too late. So if you've never done any strength training, it's very important to make sure you hire a professional with some education and with some experience to teach you the proper compound movements, squats, deadlifts, pull-ups, some type of push-up, an overhead press. So make sure that your form is intact before you start pushing on the weight, especially as you get older. Form is number one. And then you can start, adding a little bit more load and more intensity. But the biggest thing is make sure you're learning the proper moves slowly from someone who knows what they're talking about. Don't just look at the person that's the fittest person in the gym. That just means their nutrition is on point. It doesn't necessarily mean that they know exactly what they're doing in the weight room. So hire a professional. Make sure you're getting started in the right direction with the right focus and a right program that's going to progress you slowly and safely.
Okay, we'll get into nutrition the next time because there's that old saying, which is true. You can't outwork or outwalk or outrun a bad diet. Okay, so It's like if you got a Ferrari and you put in crappy gas, it's not going to go. So, you're in really good shape. Okay, good looking lady, but it probably always wasn't like that. Like, and I don't mean that. Okay, as you can tell, I'm not great with the other sex. Okay, I don't even know why my girlfriend's with me, to be honest with you. I outkicked my coverage there. But what I'm getting at is like people look at you and they say, well, yeah, but I mean, look at, she worked, like, you know what I'm saying? They might compare themselves to you. You didn't always look like that, is what I'm saying, in terms of shape and working out and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I always say to my clients, even the young ones, typically in your 20s, 30s, and sometimes, well, let's hope by 40s your habits are improving. But I certainly, enjoyed my life in my 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
Mostly my 20s and my 30s, I started picking up the slack a little just because of what I do for a living. But I always say to my clients when I train the young women and some of the young men, even if you're not happy with the way you look, as long as you're getting into the gym and being consistent 3-4 times a week, 40-45 minutes, you don't have to spend 3 hours a time each session, but as long as you're putting the time in your 20s, and maybe, you're still drinking too much and you're still staying out too late and you're maybe eating after the bar, all the things you're supposed to be doing in your 20s and 30s, which I did as well and certainly carried more body fat on me. But I always say, just don't give up on the strength training because at age 20 and 30, that's when it's the easiest to put on the muscle. And then slowly, organically, just through life, your habits improve. You grow up, you don't go to hopefully you're not going to the bar anymore. And hopefully you're going to bed at a reasonable time, because you don't feel very, very good, but also you're just older. These things happen naturally through time. So once you become a little older and your lifestyle habits slowly improve through just growing up and being an adult, you start actually seeing all the hard work that you've put in your 20s and 30s. So is it too late to start in your 40s and 50s and 60s? No. But if you do start in your 20s and you're still not happy with exactly how you look, then you just slowly start tweaking habits. But yeah, my body definitely has improved as I get older. I didn't have children, so people like to always say, well, it's easy for her because she didn't have children. And I do agree with that. But I also train hundreds of women who had children who are rocking it out, literally killing it at age 40 and 50. And we're talking had 3 or 4 children, and just make the decisions to be there for their children, but also feel and look as good as they can in the next phase of your life. Because if you don't start taking care of yourself at this time, the vitality of your life in your 60s and 70s is certainly going to suffer.
Okay, lastly for this session here, Tish. So we are in a very compact world. Like I might have an hour, I might have 90 minutes, I might only have 45 minutes. What's generally a good time spent in the gym? Like I think, I personally think 90 minutes to 2 hours is overkill. I really do.
Yeah.
I think the sweet spot's probably 45 minutes to an hour of high intensity. Like you're going. That's how I feel. Maybe it's not the same for everybody, but generally, what do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with you. If you're spending more than an hour in the gym, and I'm talking including a proper warm up and cool down, the intensity just isn't there. Put your phone down, put your earphones on, get into a zone, and give yourself some focus. If you're spending over an hour in the gym, your rest intervals are too long. Rest intervals in between sets is a real thing. We don't want the muscles to have these long periods in between sets to recover. We want to stimulate and focus on that specific muscle that we're trying to reach a threshold with. And so small rest intervals are important, especially if you're really wanting to put muscle on. Strength, when we're talking more about strength, maybe the rest intervals are a little bit longer, but there's no way anyone should be spending more than an hour in the gym. And I'm saying a 10-minute warm-up, a 10-minute cool down, maybe some mobility before you actually start, and then boom, 3 sets. I like to program, a push-pull superset. So you're doing a push chest press with a pull down. Do those right away, and then give yourself that 30 seconds to 40-second rest. Do that 3 times. Do another superset, and then another superset, so 3 supersets. You absolutely can get that done in 30 minutes. So I think most of the time people are just not putting the intensity in. If you're putting the intensity in that you're required to put in to get results, you don't want to spend more than an hour in the gym. You just don't.
No, that's for sure. And where can they find your stuff?
Okay, so I have a website, trainwithtish.com. That is probably the easiest way to contact me, but I'm on all the social media feeds, Train with Tish, Instagram. That's probably the one that I'm the most active on. But my website probably is the best landing place for people to check my stuff out.
We'll check you out in 2 weeks. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Michael. Have an awesome day.